USB, short for Universal Serial Bus, is an industry standard developed in the mid-1990s that defines the cables, connectors and communications protocols used in a bus for connection, communication, and power supply between computers and electronic devices. It is currently developed by the USB Implementers Forum. USB was designed to standardize the connection of computer peripherals to personal computers, both to communicate and to supply electric power. It has become commonplace on other devices, such as smartphones, PDAs and video game consoles. USB has effectively replaced a variety of earlier interfaces, such as parallel ports, as well as separate power chargers for portable devices. Overview. In general, there are three basic formats of USB connectors: the default or standard format intended for desktop or portable equipment, the mini intended for mobile equipment, and the thinner micro-size, for low-profile mobile equipment. Also, there are 5 modes of USB data transfer in order of increasing bandwidth: low speed, full speed, high speed, super speed, and super speed plus. Modes have differing hardware and cabling requirements. USB devices have some choice of implemented modes. An USB version is not a reliable statement of implemented modes. Modes are identified by the names and icons, and the specifications suggests that plugs and receptacles be color-coded. Unlike other data buses, USB connections are directed, with both upstream and downstream ports emanating from a single host. This applies to electrical power, with only downstream-facing ports providing power. This topology was chosen to easily prevent electrical overloads and damaged equipment. Thus, USB cables have different ends, A and B, with different physical connectors for each. Therefore, in general, each different format requires 4 different connectors, a plug and receptacle for each of the A and B ends. USB cables have the plugs, and the corresponding receptacles are on the computers or electronic devices. In common practice, the A end is usually the standard format, and the B side varies over standard, mini, and micro. The mini and micro formats also provide for USB on the go with a hermaphroditic AB receptacle, which accepts either an A or AB plug. On the go allows USB between peers without discarding the directed topology by choosing the host at connection time. It also allows one receptacle to perform double duty in space-constrained applications. There are cables with A plugs on both ends, which may be valid if the cable includes, for example, a USB host-to-host transfer device with 2 ports, but they could also be non-standard and erroneous and should be used carefully. The micro format is the most durable from the point of design insertion lifetime. The standard and mini connectors have a design lifetime of 1,500 insertion removal cycles. The improved mini B connectors increased this to 5,000. The micro-connectors were designed with frequent charging of portable devices in mind, to have a design life of 10,000 cycles, and also place the flexible contacts, which wear out sooner, on the easily replaced cable, while the more durable rigid contacts are located in the receptacles. Likewise, the springy component of the retention mechanism, parts that provide required gripping force, were also moved into plugs on the cable side. History. A group of 7 companies began the development of USB in 1994: Compaq, DEC, IBM, Intel, Microsoft, NEC, and Nortel. The goal was to make it fundamentally easier to connect external devices to PCs by replacing the multitude of connectors at the back of PCs, addressing the usability issues of existing interfaces, and simplifying software configuration of all devices connected to USB, as well as permitting greater data rates for external devices. A team including A.J. Bart worked on the standard at Intel. The first integrated circuits supporting USB were produced by Intel in 1995. The original USB 1.0 specification, which was introduced in January 1996, defined data transfer rates of 1.5 Mbit per second low speed and 12 Mbit per second full speed. Microsoft Windows 95 OS R2.1 provided OEM support for the devices. The first widely used version of USB was 1.1, which was released in September 1998. The 12 Mbit per second data rate was intended for higher-speed devices such as disk drives, and the lower 1.5 Mbit per second rate for low data rate devices such as joysticks. Apple Inc.'s iMac was the first mainstream product with USB, and the iMac's success popularized USB itself. Following Apple's design decision to remove all legacy ports from the iMac, many PC manufacturers began building legacy-free PCs, which led to the broader PC market using USB as a standard. The USB 2.0 specification was released in April 2000 and was ratified by the USB Implementers Forum at the end of 2001. Hewlett-Packard, Intel, Lucent Technologies, NEC, and Philips jointly led the initiative to develop a higher data transfer rate, with the resulting specification achieving 480 Mbit per second, a 40 times increase over the original USB 1.1 specification. The USB 3.0 specification was published on 12 November 2008. Its main goals were to increase the data transfer rate, decrease power consumption, increase power output, and be backward compatible with USB 2.0. USB 3.0 includes a new, higher-speed bus called SuperSpeed in parallel with the USB 2.0 bus. For this reason, the new version is also called SuperSpeed. The first USB 3.0 equipped devices were presented in January 2010. As of 2008, approximately 6 billion USB ports and interfaces were in the global marketplace, and about 2 billion were being sold each year. In December 2014, USB-If submitted USB 3.1, USB Power Delivery 2.0 and USB Type-C specifications to the IEC for inclusion in the international standard IEC 62680 Universal Serial Bus interfaces for data and power, which is currently based on USB 2.0. Version history overview. Power-related specifications. USB 1X, released in January 1996, USB 1.0 specified data rates of 1.5 Mbit per second and 12 Mbit per second. It did not allow for extension cables to pass through monitors, due to timing and power limitations. Few USB devices made it to the market until USB 1.1 was released in August 1998, fixing problems identified in 1.0, mostly related to using hubs. USB 1.1 was the earliest revision that was widely adopted and led to legacy-free PCs. USB 2.0 USB 2.0 was released in April 2000, adding a higher maximum signaling rate of 480 Mbit per second, in addition to the USB 1X full-speed signaling rate of 12 Mbit per second. Due to bus access constraints, the effective throughput of the high-speed signaling rate is limited to 280 Mbit per second of 35 megabytes per second. Further modifications to the USB specification have been made via engineering change notices. The most important of these ECNs are included into the USB 2.0 specification package available from USB.org. Mini A and Mini B connector ECN, released in October 2000. Specifications for Mini A and Mini B plug-in receptacle. Also receptacle that accepts both plugs for on-the-go. These should not be confused with Micro B plug-in receptacle. Pull-up, pull-down resistors ECN, released in May 2002. Interface Associations ECN, released in May 2003. New standard descriptor was added that allows associating multiple interfaces with a single device function. Rounded chamfer ECN, released in October 2003. A recommended backward-compatible change to Mini B plugs that results in longer-lasting connectors. Unicode ECN, released in February 2005. This ECN specifies that strings are encoded using UTF-16LE. USB 2.0 specified Unicode, but did not specify the encoding. Interchip USB supplement, released in March 2006. On-the-Go Supplement 1.3, released in December 2006. USB On-the-Go makes it possible for two USB devices to communicate with each other without requiring a separate USB host. In practice, one of the USB devices acts as a host for the other device. Battery Charging Specification 1.1, released in March 2007 and updated on 15 April 2009, adds support for dedicated chargers, host chargers and no-dead battery provision, which allows devices to temporarily draw 100 mA current after they have been attached. If a USB device is connected to a dedicated charger, maximum current drawn by the device may be as high as 1.8 A. Micro USB cables and connectors Specification 1.01, released in April 2007. Link Power Management Addendum ECN, released in July 2007. This adds sleep, a new power state between enabled and suspended states. Device in this state is not required to reduce its power consumption. However, switching between enabled and sleep states is much faster than switching between enabled and suspended states, which allows devices to sleep while idle. Battery Charging Specification 1.2, released in December 2010. Several changes and increasing limits, including allowing 1.5 A on charging ports for unconfigured devices, allowing high-speed communication while having a current up to 1.5 A and allowing a maximum current of 5 A. USB 3.0. The USB 3.0 specification was released on 12 November 2008, with its management transferring from USB 3.0 Promoter Group to the USB Implementers Forum, and announced on 17 November 2008 at the Superspeed USB Developers Conference. USB 3.0 defines a new superspeed transfer mode, with associated new backwards compatible plugs, receptacles, and cables. Superspeed plugs and receptacles are identified with a distinct logo and blue inserts in standard format receptacles. The new superspeed mode provides a data signaling rate of 5.0 GB/s per second. However, due to the overhead incurred by IP10B encoding, the payload throughput is actually 4 GB/s per second, and the specification considers it reasonable to achieve only around 3.2 GB/s per second. However, this should increase with future hardware advances. Communication is full duplex in superspeed transfer mode. Earlier modes are half duplex, arbitrated by the host. Low power and high power devices remain operational with this standard, but devices using superspeed can take advantage of increased available current of between 150 mA and 900 mA respectively. Additionally, there is a battery charging specification, which increases the power handling capability to 1.5 A but does not allow concurrent data transmission. The battery charging specification requires that the physical ports themselves be capable of handling 5 A of current but limits the maximum current drawn to 1.5 A. USB 3.1. A January 2013 press release from the USB Group revealed plans to update USB 3.0 to 10 GB/s per second. The group ended up creating a new USB specification, USB 3.1, which was released on the 31st of July 2013, replacing the USB 3.0 standard. The USB 3.1 specification takes over the existing USB 3.0's superspeed USB transfer rate, also referred to as USB 3.1 Gen 1, and introduces a faster transfer rate called superspeed USB 10 gigabits per second, also referred to as USB 3.1 Gen 2, putting it on par with a single first-generation Thunderbolt channel. The new mode's logo features a caption stylized as Superspeed Plus. The USB 3.1 standard increases the data signaling rate to 10 GB/s per second, double that of Superspeed USB, and reduces line encoding overhead to just 3% by changing the encoding scheme to 128B, 132B. The first USB 3.1 implementation demonstrated transfer speeds of 7.2 GB/s per second. The USB 3.1 standard is backward compatible with USB 3.0 and USB 2.0. USB Type-C developed at roughly the same time as the USB 3.1 specification, but distinct from it. The USB Type-C specification 1.0 was finalized in August 2014 and defines a new small reversible plug connector for USB devices. The Type-C plug connects to both hosts and devices, replacing various Type A and Type B connectors and cables with a standard meant to be future-proof, similar to Apple Lightning and Thunderbolt. The 24-pin double-sided connector provides 4 power ground pairs, 2 differential pairs for USB 2.0 data bus, 4 pairs for high-speed data bus, 2 sideband use pins, and 2 configuration pins for cable orientation detection, dedicated by phase mark code configuration data channel, and VCONN plus 5V Power 4 active cables. Type A and Type B adapters and cables are required for older devices to plug into Type-C hosts. Adapters and cables with a Type-C receptacle are not allowed. Full-featured USB Type-C cables are active, electronically marked cables that contain a chip with an IDE function based on the configuration data channel and vendor-defined messages from the USB Power Delivery 2.0 specification. USB Type-C devices also support power currents of 1.5 A and 3.0 A over the 5 volts power bus. In addition to baseline 900 mA, devices can either negotiate increased USB current through the configuration line, or they can support the full power delivery specification using both BMC-coded configuration line and legacy BFSK-coded VBUS line. Alternate mode dedicates some of the physical wires in the Type-C cable for direct device-to-host transmission of alternate data protocol. protocols, the 4 high-speed lanes, 2 sideband pins, and, for dock, detachable device and permanent cable applications, only 2 USB 2.0 pins and 1 configuration pin can be used for alternate mode transmission. The modes are configured using VDMs through the configuration channel. System design. The design architecture of USB is asymmetrical in its topology, consisting of a host, a multitude of downstream USB ports, and multiple peripheral devices connected in a tiered star topology. Additional USB hubs may be included in the tiers, allowing branching into a tree structure with up to 5 tier levels. A USB host may implement multiple host controllers, and each host controller may provide 1 or more USB ports. Up to 127 devices, including hub devices if present, may be connected to a single host controller. USB devices are linked in series through hubs. One hub built into the host controller is the root hub. A physical USB device may consist of several logical sub-devices that are referred to as device functions. A single device may provide several functions, for example, a webcam with a built-in microphone. This kind of device is called a composite device. An alternative to this is compound device, in which the host assigns each logical device a distinctive address and all logical devices connect to a built-in hub that connects to the physical USB cable. USB device communication is based on pipes. A pipe is a connection from the host controller to a logical entity found on a device and named an endpoint. Because pipes correspond one-to-one to endpoints, the terms are sometimes used interchangeably. A USB device could have up to 32 endpoints, though it's rare to have so many. An endpoint is defined and numbered by the device during initialization and so is relatively permanent, whereas a pipe may be opened and closed. There are 2 types of pipe: stream and message. A message pipe is bidirectional and is used for control transfers. Message pipes are typically used for short, simple commands to the device, and a status response, used, for example, by the bus control pipe number 0. A stream pipe is a unidirectional pipe connected to a unidirectional endpoint that transfers data using an isochronous, interrupt, or bulk transfer. Isochronous transfers at some guaranteed data rate but with possible data loss. Interrupt transfers. Devices that need guaranteed quick responses. Bulk transfers. Large sporadic transfers using all remaining available bandwidth, but with no guarantees on bandwidth. The latency and endpoint of a pipe is addressable with a tuple specified in a token packet that the host sends when it wants to start a data transfer session. If the direction of the data transfer is from the host to the endpoint, an out packet having the desired device address and endpoint number is sent by the host. If the direction of the data transfer is from the device to the host sends an in packet instead. If the destination endpoint is a unidirectional endpoint whose manufacturer's designated direction does not match the token packet, the token packet is ignored. Otherwise, it is accepted and the data transaction can start. A bidirectional endpoint, on the other hand, accepts both in and out packets. Endpoints are grouped into interfaces and each interface is associated with a single device function. An exception to this is endpoint 0, which is used for device configuration and is not associated with any interface. A single device function composed of independently controlled interfaces is called a composite device. A composite device only has a single device address because the host only assigns a device address to a function. When a USB device is first connected to a USB host, the USB device enumeration process is started. The enumeration starts by sending a reset signal to the USB device. The data rate of the USB device is determined during the reset signaling. After reset, the USB device's information is read by the host and the device is assigned a unique 7-bit address. If the device is supported by the host, the device drivers needed for communicating with the device are loaded and the device is set to a configured state. If the USB host is restarted, the enumeration process is repeated for all connected devices. The host controller directs traffic flow to devices, so no USB device can transfer any data on the bus without an explicit request from the host controller. In USB 2.0, the host controller polls the bus for traffic, usually in a round-robin fashion. The throughput of each USB port is determined by the slower speed of either the USB port or the USB device connected to the port. High-speed USB 2.0 hubs contain devices called transaction translators that convert between high-speed USB 2.0 buses and full and low-speed buses. When a high-speed USB 2.0 hub is plugged into a high-speed USB host hub, it operates in high-speed mode. The USB hub then uses either one transaction translator per hub to create a full, low-speed bus routed to all full and low-speed devices on the hub, or uses one transaction translator per port to create an isolated full, low-speed bus per port on the hub. Because there are two separate controllers in each USB 3.0 host, USB 3.0 devices transmit and receive at USB 3.0 data rates regardless of USB 2.0 or earlier devices connected to that host. Operating data rates for earlier devices are set in the legacy manner. Device classes. The functionality of USB devices is defined by class codes, communicated to the USB host to affect the loading of suitable software driver modules for each connected device. This provides for adaptability and device independence of the host to support new devices from different manufacturers. Device classes include USB mass storage, USB drive. USB implements connections to storage devices using a set of standards called the USB mass storage device class. This was at first intended for traditional magnetic and optical drives and has been extended to support flash drives. It has also been extended to support a wide variety of novel devices, as many systems can be controlled with the familiar metaphor of file manipulation within directories. The process of making a novel device look like a familiar device is also known as extension. The ability to boot a write-locked SD card with a USB adapter is particularly advantageous for maintaining the integrity and non-corruptible, pristine state of the booting medium. Though most computers since mid-2004 can boot from USB mass storage devices, USB is not intended as a primary bus for a computer's internal storage. Buses such as parallel-ATA, serial-ATA, or SCSI fulfill that role in PC-class computers. However, USB has one important advantage, in that it is possible to install and remove devices without rebooting the computer, making it useful for mobile peripherals, including drives of various kinds. Firstly conceived and still used today for optical storage devices, several manufacturers offer external portable USB hard disk drives, or empty enclosures for disk drives. These offer performance comparable to internal drives, limited by the current number and types of attached USB devices, and by the upper limit of the USB interface. These external drives typically include a translating device that bridges between a drive's interface to a USB interface port. Functionally, the drive appears to the user much like an internal drive. Other competing standards for external drive connectivity include SATA, ExpressCard, FireWire, and most recently Thunderbolt. Another use for USB mass storage devices is the portable execution of software applications with no need to install them on the host computer. Media Transfer Protocol. Media Transfer Protocol was designed by Microsoft to give higher-level access to a device's file system than USB mass storage, at the level of files rather than disk blocks. It also has optional DRM features. MTP was designed for use with portable media players, but it has since been adopted as the primary storage access protocol of the Android operating system from the version 4.1 Jelly Bean as well as Windows Phone 8. The primary reason for this is that MTP does not require exclusive access to the storage device the way ARMS does, alleviating potential problems should an Android program request the storage while it is attached to a computer. The main drawback is that MTP is not as well supported outside of Windows operating systems. Human interface devices, joysticks, keypads, tablets and other human interface devices are also progressively migrating from MIDI and PC game port connectors to USB. USB mice and keyboards can usually be used with older computers that have PS2 connectors with the aid of a small USB to PS2 adapter. For mice and keyboards with dual protocol support, an adapter that contains no logic circuitry may be used. The hardware in the USB keyboard or mouse is designed to detect whether it is connected to a USB or PS2 port, and communicate using the appropriate protocol. Converters also exist that connect PS2 keyboards and mice to a USB port. These devices present TrueHit endpoints to the system and use a microcontroller to perform bidirectional data translation between the two standards. Device firmware upgrade. Device firmware upgrade is a vendor and device-independent mechanism for upgrading the firmware of USB devices with improved versions provided by the manufacturers, offering a way for firmware bug fixes to be deployed. During the firmware upgrade operation, USB devices change their operating mode, effectively becoming a PROM programmer. Any class of USB device can implement this capability by following the official DFU specifications. In addition to its intended legitimate purposes, DFU can also be exploited by uploading maliciously crafted firmwares that cause USB devices to spoof various other device types. One such exploiting approach is known as PDAs.